I still remember the first time I realized my neighbor wasn't just a little nosy, she was downright obsessed with my life. Her name was Karen, and she lived 2 houses down from me on our quiet little suburban street. From the outside, you'd think she was a model neighbor, well-kept lawn, neat garden, always waving at passers-by with that fake friendly smile. But behind that smile, there was something sharp, something that made the hairs on the back of my neck stand up whenever she looked my way. It all started on a Saturday morning. I'd just washed my car, a black Honda Accord that I was pretty proud of, and parked it neatly in my own driveway. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and I was planning to spend the rest of the afternoon fixing up some shelves in the garage. Life felt peaceful, but peace doesn't last long when you've got a Karen living nearby. I heard her voice before I saw her, that shrill, high-pitched tone that could cut through a brick wall. "Excuse me! Excuse me!" she yelled, marching up the sidewalk toward my house. I put down my drill and turned to face her, already feeling my stomach tighten. "Yes, Karen, can I help you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice calm. She pointed at my car like it was a crime scene. "That vehicle doesn't belong here. Whose car is that?" I blinked, half amused, half annoyed. Mine? It's my car, parked in my driveway. Where else would it belong?" Her lips pursed so tightly I thought her face might implode. "Well, I've lived here for 15 years, and I've never seen that car before. How do I know it's yours? For all I know, you could be letting strangers park in this neighborhood. It lowers the property value, you know." I wanted to laugh. Strangers? In my own driveway? The logic didn't even make sense. But instead, I just sighed. "Karen, it's my car. I bought it a few months ago. I didn't realize I had to run all my purchases by you first." She crossed her arms, glaring. "Don't get smart with me. I'm part of the neighborhood watch, and I have every right to report suspicious vehicles. If you think you can just—" Before she could finish, her phone was already in her hand. She was dialing someone, and my gut told me this was about to get messy. Within minutes, a tow truck pulled onto the street. My heart sank. Was she really doing this? Was she actually trying to tow my car from my own driveway? I walked toward the truck driver, waving my hands. "Hey, hold on! This is my car! You can't tow it!" The driver, a tall guy with grease-stained hands, looked confused. This lady called it in. Said it was an abandoned vehicle." "Abandoned? I just washed it an hour ago." Karen chimed in, her voice dripping with false authority. "This car doesn't belong to him. I've lived here long enough to know who does and doesn't live here. He's lying." The driver hesitated, glancing between us. "Look, I don't want trouble. Do you have proof this is your car?" Luckily, I had my keys in my pocket. I hit the unlock button, and the car beeped loudly. The driver raised an eyebrow. "Seems like it's his, lady." But Karen wasn't backing down. "That doesn't prove anything. He could have stolen the keys," she snapped. "Call the police. Let them handle this." And that's when I felt the anger really rise in me. She wasn't just being annoying, she was trying to publicly humiliate me in front of the entire block. Neighbors had already started peeking out their windows, curious about the scene unfolding outside. I clenched my jaw, staring at her. "Fine," I said. "Let's call the police. I've got nothing to hide." The tow truck driver looked uncomfortable, but stepped aside. "All right, I'll wait here. No one's getting towed until the cops show up." Karen folded her arms triumphantly, like she'd just won some kind of battle. "Good! Finally, someone will deal with this nonsense." I stood there in my own driveway, my car behind me, my pride on the line. Neighbors whispered from across the street, some shaking their heads, others smirking. I could feel the heat rising in my face, not just from embarrassment, but from sheer disbelief. How could anyone be this unreasonable? And yet, deep down, I had a feeling this was only the beginning. Karen wasn't just trying to tow my car, she was trying to start a war. But what happened next shocked even me. The police were on their way, and I thought things would be settled quickly. But when they arrived, Karen's lies took a whole new level, and I had no idea how far she was willing to go to prove she was right. Waiting for the police felt like standing on a stage with the whole neighborhood as my audience. Every second dragged on. I could feel eyes on me from behind blinds and half-opened curtains. Karen stood there, arms crossed, like a self-appointed sheriff, smug as ever. Finally, 2 patrol cars rolled up. Their flashing lights painted the street red and blue. My stomach tightened. I knew I was innocent, but still, no one likes dealing with the police when your own neighbor is accusing you of something ridiculous. 2 officers stepped out. A tall man with a calm expression, and a younger woman who looked like she'd just had her patience tested one too many times that day. Karen practically sprinted over to them. "Officers, thank God you're here! This man is trespassing, and that vehicle does not belong in this neighborhood. He's been causing disturbances, and I demand you tow it immediately!" I almost choked on my own breath. Trespassing? Disturbances? She was piling on lies faster than I could process them. The tall officer raised a hand. "Ma'am, slow down. Let's take this one step at a time. Who actually lives here?" Karen jabbed a finger in my direction. "Not him. I know everyone on this street. He just moved in without telling the HOA, and now he's bringing in suspicious cars. We need to keep our community safe." The younger officer turned to me, eyebrow raised. "Sir, can you explain what's going on?" I took a deep breath, steadying my voice. "Officers, my name is... I've lived in this house for years. That car," I pointed to the Accord, "is mine, registered under my name, parked in my own driveway. She's making things up." The officers exchanged a look. The younger one pulled out her notepad. "Do you have proof of ownership? Registration? Insurance? Something like that?" Of course. I jogged into the house, grabbed my folder from the kitchen drawer, and returned with my car's registration and insurance papers. My hands trembled slightly, not from guilt, but from anger at the absurdity of having to prove myself in front of my neighbors because of Karen's lies. The tall officer inspected the papers, nodded, and handed them back. "Looks legit." But Karen wasn't done. Her face flushed red, her voice climbing higher. "No, you don't understand. He stole that paperwork. I've seen people like him on TV. Next thing you know, he'll be running a chop shop out of his garage." The officer sighed, pinching the bridge of his nose. "Ma'am, please calm down. There's no evidence of any crime here." That should have ended it. That should have been the moment Karen realized she was wrong and backed off. But instead, she doubled down. She stepped toward me, her finger wagging dangerously close to my face. "You think you're clever, don't you? Sneaking around, pretending you belong here? Well, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are." I felt my fists clench. My heart pounded. But I forced myself to stay calm, knowing one wrong word could make things worse. "Karen," I said through gritted teeth, "this is harassment. You've crossed the line." The younger officer intervened, stepping between us. "All right, that's enough. Ma'am, unless you have actual proof of wrongdoing, you need to let this go." But Karen wasn't hearing it. She turned to the gathering crowd of neighbors. Yes, by now half the block was outside watching, and raised her voice like she was addressing a jury. "You all saw it! This car wasn't here before! He doesn't belong here! I'm protecting our community!" The murmurs spread through the crowd. Some neighbors shook their heads in disbelief, others whispered to each other, and a few even laughed quietly. I caught the eye of my next-door neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, who mouthed, "I'm so sorry." The tall officer, clearly running out of patience, finally spoke firmly. "Ma'am, if you continue to make false reports, you could face consequences. Do you understand?" Karen's face twisted, caught between outrage and fear. She stammered, But I was just trying to help." The younger officer turned to me. "Sir, you're free to go about your day. We'll log this as a civil disturbance, but no action is being taken against you." Relief washed over me, but it was mixed with a deep simmering anger. Karen had dragged my name through the mud, embarrassed me in front of everyone, and wasted police resources all because of her twisted obsession with control. As the officers packed up to leave, Karen shot me one last venomous blare. It wasn't over. I could see it in her eyes. And as much as I wanted to believe that this nightmare would end here, something in my gut told me she was only getting started. I thought the worst was behind me, but I couldn't have been more wrong. Karen wasn't just humiliated, she was furious. And her revenge plan? It was about to get a whole lot nastier. The night after the police left, I thought maybe, just maybe, that would be the end of it. Karen had embarrassed herself badly enough in front of the entire block, and I figured even she would back off. But the next morning, I woke up to something new. A note was taped to my car windshield. The paper flapped lightly in the breeze, written in thick black marker with handwriting so messy it looked almost angry. "Move this car or else." I stood there in disbelief, gripping the note in my hand. My driveway, my property, and she still had the audacity to leave me threats? I looked around the street, half expecting Karen to be spying from behind her blinds. Sure enough, I caught the faint twitch of her curtain sliding shut. She wanted me to know it was her, even if she didn't sign the note. I crumpled it in my fist and muttered, "Unbelievable." By lunchtime, the situation escalated again. I heard the rumble of Karen's voice echoing across the cul-de-sac. She was talking loudly to another neighbor, deliberately making sure I could hear every word. "Oh, but you know how people can be. They just move in, bringing who knows what into our community. Cars showing up at all hours, lowering property values, creating hazards. Someone has to do something before this whole neighborhood goes downhill." Her neighbor, clearly uncomfortable, nodded politely but glanced at me with sympathy. Everyone knew she was talking about me, but no one dared to confront her. Karen thrived on making others uncomfortable. And then came the HOA complaints. 2 days later, I got an official-looking letter in the mail. The Homeowners Association claimed my car was improperly parked and potentially unregistered. The language was suspiciously similar to the nonsense Karen had been spewing. I stormed into my house, letter in hand, and slammed it on the kitchen counter. "She's behind this. No one else cares about where I park. She must have filed this complaint." The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. Karen wasn't just trying to bother me anymore. She was building a case, piece by piece, to make me look like a problem neighbor. That night, I called my buddy Marcus, who lived a few streets over. "Man, you won't believe what's happening," I told him. I laid out the whole story, from the tow truck to the police to the notes and the HOA complaint. Marcus whistled low. "Bro, that's insane. She sounds like she's got nothing better to do than mess with your life. But careful, people like that, they don't stop until they get what they want." I sighed. "Yeah, but what does she want? To make me move? To humiliate me? I don't get it." Marcus chuckled darkly. "Control, man. Some people live for it. Best thing you can do is start documenting everything. Notes, letters, conversations. Get it all on record. You might need it." His advice made sense. So, from that night on, I started keeping a little folder. Every note, every letter, every weird thing Karen tried, I saved it. I even installed a cheap security camera over my driveway just in case. And wouldn't you know it, 2 nights later, that camera caught something shocking. At around 11:45 p.m., Karen snuck out of her house, looked around like a cartoon villain making sure the coast was clear, and then marched straight into my driveway. She leaned over my car and slammed another note onto the windshield. But this one was worse. Last warning, this is not your place. I felt my blood boil watching the footage the next morning. She wasn't just harassing me now, she was trespassing, on video. I thought about calling the police again, but a small part of me wanted to wait, to let her dig her own hole deeper. She was so determined to prove that I didn't belong here. Maybe it was time to let her expose herself in front of everyone again. Still, it wasn't easy living under her constant attacks. I couldn't even pull into my own driveway without scanning the street, wondering what she'd try next. Every time I saw that twitch of her curtains, I felt my chest tighten. She wasn't just a neighbor anymore. She was a shadow, hanging over my daily life. And yet, a part of me was curious. Just how far would she go? The morning after I caught Karen sneaking onto my driveway, I decided to play it smart. Instead of calling the police right away, I held on to the footage. Marcus's words kept echoing in my head. Let her dig her own hole deeper. And sure enough, Karen wasn't finished. 2 days later, I got a knock on my door. When I opened it, 3 people stood there. 2 men in polo shirts with clipboards and a woman with a stern face, the HOA board. The tallest of the men cleared his throat. "Good morning. We've received several complaints about your vehicle and possible violations regarding its parking. We're here to discuss the matter." I felt my stomach knot, but I kept my cool. Complaints? From who? The woman jumped in, her tone rehearsed. "We don't disclose complainants, but concerns were raised about an unregistered car being parked overnight and potentially obstructing community aesthetics." Community aesthetics. What a fancy way to say Karen doesn't like it. Before I could answer, guess who appeared on the sidewalk? Karen. Arms folded, smug grin plastered across her face, acting like she just happened to be walking by. "Oh, thank goodness you're here," she called out sweetly. "I was so worried about our neighborhood standards. That car has been such an eyesore." I bit my tongue so hard I thought I'd paste blood. But instead of exploding, I smiled. "Funny you say that, Karen, because I have proof that car belongs to me. And more importantly, I have proof that you've been trespassing on my property." The HOA board members froze. "Trespassing?" one of them repeated. Yep, I pulled out my phone, opened the security camera app, and showed them the video. Clear as day. There was Karen creeping into my driveway in the middle of the night, slapping a note onto my windshield. The smugness drained from her face in an instant. Her eyes darted around, searching for an escape. That's fake! Edited! You can't trust this technology! It's AI or something!" One of the HOA men raised an eyebrow. "Karen, that looks pretty clear." The woman with the clipboard frowned. "This is concerning. We can't enforce a complaint if the complainant is engaging in harassment." Karen's voice cracked as she tried to recover. "I was only doing my duty, keeping the neighborhood safe. You all should thank me." I stepped forward, my voice firm but calm. "Safe? By sneaking into my driveway at midnight? By filing false complaints? By calling the police on me in front of the whole block? That's not safety, Karen. That's harassment." The HOA members exchanged uneasy glances. Finally, the tall man sighed. "We'll need to review this formally, but for now, we won't be pursuing these complaints. This appears to be a personal dispute." I wanted to cheer, but I stayed composed. Thank you. That's all I ask. Fairness. But Karen, oh, she wasn't letting it go. Her face burned red, her voice shrill. You're all blind. He's ruining this neighborhood. If you don't handle it, I'll call the police again. And just like that, she stormed off, muttering under her breath. The HOA members looked at me apologetically before heading back down the sidewalk. As they left, I noticed neighbors peeking from their porches, whispering, shaking their heads. Karen's meltdown had become public theater, and the audience wasn't on her side anymore. Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that she was far from finished. People like Karen didn't just quit when they lost, they doubled down. That evening, my prediction came true. At 9:30 p.m., red and blue lights once again flashed down our street. Another police car. My stomach dropped. I walked outside to see Karen already talking to the officers, pointing at my house, waving her arms like she was reporting a terrorist threat. And I'm telling you, he's running some kind of illegal operation from his garage. Cars coming and going, strangers lurking around. It's suspicious. My jaw nearly hit the ground. Illegal operation. Strangers. The lies were spiraling out of control. The officer spotted me and gestured. "Sir, can we speak with you?" Karen smirked, as if she'd finally nailed me. I took a deep breath and stepped forward, ready to defend myself again. But this time, I had something I didn't have before. Proof. I thought the first police visit was bad, but this time, with Karen accusing me of running a criminal operation, everything was on the line. What happened next not only cleared my name, it turned the whole neighborhood against her. As I walked down my driveway toward the flashing lights, I could feel my neighbors watching again. Curtains shifted, porch lights flicked on. This had become the street's evening entertainment. Karen versus me, the show. The officer, a different one this time, looked stern but professional. "Sir, your neighbor here is making some serious allegations. She claims there's suspicious activity around your property. Can you explain?" Before I could open my mouth, Karen jumped in, her voice shrill and theatrical. "He's hiding something in that garage. I see cars I don't recognize, people coming and going. It's criminal, I'm telling you." I clenched my jaw, biting back a laugh. Criminal? The other strangers coming to my house lately were Amazon drivers. I pulled out my phone. "Officer, before we go any further, I'd like to show you something." The officer raised an eyebrow. "Go ahead." I tapped open my security camera app and held the screen out. There, in clear HD, was Karen sneaking into my driveway at night planting her little hate notes. I flipped through the clips, one after another, showing her creeping around like a wannabe detective. "This is what I've been dealing with," I said, my voice steady. "She's been harassing me for weeks, trespassing on my property, filing false reports, and now she's accusing me of running some criminal operation?" The officer's expression hardened. He turned slowly toward Karen. "Ma'am, care to explain this footage?" Karen's face went pale under the streetlight. She stammered, waving her hands. "That's not me. That's fake. Edited. You can't trust these things these days." The officer wasn't buying it. "It looks pretty clear, ma'am." By now, neighbors had gathered in little clusters along the sidewalk. Some whispered, others openly snickered. The longer this dragged on, the more ridiculous Karen looked. I added calmly, "For the record, officer, I have all my car's paperwork, my registration, and insurance. Everything's legal. The only suspicious activity here is my neighbor making it her mission to ruin my life." The officer sighed, clearly fed up. He stepped aside and radioed something back to dispatch. After a moment, he returned. "All right, sir, you're fine. Everything checks out. Ma'am," he turned his gaze on Karen, firm now, You need to stop making false reports. This is harassment, and if it continues, there will be consequences. Do you understand?" Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish gasping for air. Finally, she hissed, "I'm just trying to protect the neighborhood." The officer didn't flinch. "No, ma'am. You're wasting police resources and harassing your neighbor. Consider this your warning." The crowd of neighbors broke into murmurs. Some chuckled, some clapped softly, others shook their heads. It was official. Karen had been publicly shut down. I felt a rush of relief, but also something else. Vindication. For weeks, she'd painted me as the villain, and now the tables had turned. The truth was out there for everyone to see. But Karen? She wasn't handling it well. Her face twisted with rage, her hands trembling as she jabbed a finger at me one last time. "This isn't over. You'll regret this. Just wait." Then she stormed off into her house, slamming the door so hard it echoed down the street. The officer gave me a sympathetic nod. "Document everything, sir. If she bothers you again, call us right away. We'll take it from there." As the patrol car drove off, I stood in the middle of the street, the glow of victory washing over me. Neighbors approached. Mrs. Peterson patted my arm, saying, "We knew you weren't doing anything wrong." Another guy muttered, "About time someone stood up to her." For the first time in weeks, I felt like I wasn't alone. But deep down, I also knew Karen wasn't finished. She'd lost face in front of the entire block, and people like her didn't forget. What I didn't realize was that her final act, the last desperate attempt to destroy me, would turn out to be her most humiliating failure of all. For a few days after the second police visit, things were strangely quiet. No notes on my car, no complaints in the mail, no late-night spying from behind her curtains. Part of me thought, maybe, just maybe, the humiliation had finally gotten through to Karen. But I should have known better. The calm ended on a Saturday afternoon. I was out front, trimming my hedges, when I heard the sound of a whistle. Sharp, piercing. Then came Karen's voice, booming across the cul-de-sac. Everyone, gather round! Emergency neighborhood meeting!" I froze, clippers in hand, as neighbors poked their heads out. Some looked annoyed, others curious, but slowly people began trickling toward Karen's driveway. She stood there like a town crier, clipboard in one hand, megaphone in the other. "I have evidence," she declared, her face flushed with righteous fury. "This man," she jabbed her finger toward me, "does not belong here. He is violating HOA rules, damaging our property values, and endangering our community." I nearly laughed out loud. After everything, after the police, the footage, the warnings, she was doubling down in front of everyone. I walked over calmly, all eyes turning toward me. "Evidence?" I asked, my voice steady. "Go ahead, Karen. Show them." Her grin widened as she fumbled with her clipboard. She pulled out a stack of papers and held them up dramatically. "Right here! Look at these!" The neighbors leaned closer, but as she flipped through the sheets, it became painfully obvious they were nothing. Printouts of random articles about car theft rings, blurry photos of cars that weren't even mine, vague notes scribbled in her messy handwriting. "This proves nothing," I said firmly, holding my ground. "And you all know it." Whispers rippled through the crowd. Mrs. Peterson shook her head. Another neighbor muttered, "She's lost it." Karen's face twisted, desperate now. She waved her papers wildly. "Don't you see? He's tricking you all. He's dangerous. We need to get his car out of here before something terrible happens." That's when I knew it was time. I pulled out my phone, tapped a button, and projected my security footage onto a small portable projector I'd brought just in case. The video lit up against my garage door for everyone to see. Karen sneaking into my driveway at midnight, plastering her notes, scurrying away like a guilty thief. Gasps filled the air. Neighbors covered their mouths. Others laughed outright. One guy even shouted, Busted! Karen froze. The color drained from her face as the footage played again and again. Her evidence crumpled in her trembling hands. I spoke clearly so everyone could hear. This is the truth. I've lived here peacefully for years. My car is registered, insured, and legally parked on my property. The only danger to this community is the harassment I've endured from her. The crowd erupted, not in support of Karen, but in condemnation. You should be ashamed, Karen. Wasting our time with this nonsense. Leave him alone already. Karen's mouth opened, but no words came out. She was drowning in her own humiliation, exposed in front of the very people she wanted to impress. Finally, with tears welling in her eyes, she threw her clipboard to the ground and ran into her house, slamming the door. Silence lingered for a moment before neighbors turned to me. Mrs. Peterson gave me a warm smile. "Don't worry, dear. We all know the truth now." Others nodded in agreement, patting me on the back, telling me not to let Karen get under my skin. For the first time, the neighborhood stood with me. That night, as I parked my car in the driveway, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Karen's power over me, her accusations, her threats, her constant harassment was gone. She'd tried everything, and in the end, she destroyed only her own reputation. And as I locked my front door, I thought to myself, sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the truth speak louder than the lies.